So about 15 miles from here is the Tempe campus of Arizona State University, which has been cited as the most innovative university by US News and World Report for the last 7 years running. And ASU's chapter of the National Academy of Inventors was established in 2017. And we really celebrate innovation and invention daily at ASU. And we understand its importance in achieving our mission, which is to do research of public value accountable to the communities that we serve. But we know we can do better. For example, how do we provide our students an opportunity to be inventive and entrepreneurial? How do we recognize and reward translational research in evaluation and assessment? For example, in the tenure and promotion process, one that I know well, I was a dean before I joined ASU. How do we allow failure given the rigidity of the academic timeline? And this panel of university presidents that we're going to hear from next is going to discuss just that: innovation in university culture, innovating for future generations, and the role of invention in promotion and tenure. A 2014 paper in PNAS was motivated by an NAI panel, which asked the question, would Thomas Edison receive tenure? And that paper discussed change, and I want to conclude with a quote from that paper. 10 years from now, so the paper was written in 2014, 10 years from now, the university culture will be, or should be, much more proactive in terms of nurturing ideas and trying to identify the ones that have the most potential to impact society, as well as being more active in finding resources to bring those ideas to reality. We are now 8 years since that decadal mandate. It's a perfect time, I think, to hear from this president's panel about our progress, what remains to be done, and how we can tackle together those challenges. ASU is honored to sponsor this panel, and I'm delighted to introduce today's speakers, all of whom are fellows of the NAI. So our moderator is James Conley, clinical professor, Kellogg School of Management, Northwestern University. Welcome. Our speakers are Alexander Cartwright, who is president of University of Central Florida. Welcome. Our next speaker is Gregory Crawford, president, Miami University. Our last speaker is Teik Lim. Dr. Lim is currently at the University of Texas at Arlington, but he is the president-elect of New Jersey Institute of Technology. Welcome. So I am really looking forward to the panel, and I know the audience is as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally, for that kind introduction. It is a privilege and an honor for me to participate in this panel with my distinguished guests and to address some questions that I think are relevant to all in the Academy and those that we hope to invite in to participate in our activities in the future. And the first thing that I'd like to mention about this panel is that, in fact, these presidents are here. They're here at this Academy, and it's not just them. Earlier, we heard from Jennifer Cowley, who's actually the most recent incoming president at UT Arlington, as well as Richard Lang. And before this conversation began, we reviewed that there are 47 past and current presidents of universities and institutes that are members and or fellows of this particular academy. And I would venture to guess that in the room here, there are future presidents of what are a number of institutions across the country. So I'm very glad that they're actually here so they can address some questions that I think are of general interest. So I'm going to start with some of the words that were actually shared in our panel yesterday that have been reflected in earlier panels. What did we hear? Culture eats strategy for breakfast. right? We've heard that a couple times now. And then it all starts at the top, right? Well, you are literally at the top of your respective institutions. And we are all essentially following the cultural cues that you make. So to begin our panel discussion, I want to plant a broad question. Collectively, these three presidents represent 150,000 students, either in their current position or their future position. So this is an important culture-forming assembly. And this one I'm going to address to Alex from University of Central Florida. What is the role of the National Academy of Inventors and its membership in furthering the mission of your university?
Thank you, James. Thanks, everybody, for being here today. We appreciate you listening to us. I'll start by saying, that the National Academy of Inventors is something that recognizes the innovation spirit of a university. And if you look at the University of Central Florida, we're an institution that's been pretty innovative over the years, and not just in academic realm, but also in all the other things we do across the university. Having recognition of our faculty of being inventors and the importance of that is something that just builds on that culture of the institution. It's something that has made us a top 15 university for innovation, and we're really recognized for all the things we're doing in innovation. And it's something that is shaping what we're going to be in the future, that connection and belief in innovation. I heard it said earlier today that really, we shouldn't talk as much about inventions, but really, how do we solve problems? And when you look at something as simple as our strategic plan, which is a pretty complex document, but it's all about unleashing potential. And during that time, we decided that it was necessary to even change our mission statement. And we have a part in the mission statement that talks about enhancing the human experience through inclusion, discovery, and innovation. Innovation is actually in the mission statement for the university. And that means something to us because it's about how do we think about everything we do across the university. It isn't just about patents or other breakthroughs, but it's rather how are we more efficient as a university? How do we respond faster? You heard earlier today industry talking about some of the timescales being, months rather than years that we're used to. How do we change that? How do we become more efficient that we can actually respond on that timescale and have the partnerships that we need to have with industry moving into the future? And it's NAI and our fellows that are really at the forefront of a lot of that. It's the people that are thinking about how do we embrace that? They're the advocates for this need for us to be innovative. And I can tell you that that history of being innovative and that belief in that we can do things differently has made it possible for the university to accomplish incredible things. We're a very young university, but yet what we've accomplished in that period of time is pretty remarkable. And when we, for example, even said last year, we're going to completely redo our ERP, the whole systems across the whole university, and add in a new budget model and restructure all of how we manage our service across the whole university. And
that's too many ands, Alex.
But what was amazing is the university, our community stepped up, and we did that in 1 year. And we'll launch it in July, so probably my message will be different July 1st. But we're hoping that it won't be. But I really feel that it's because of this culture that's embedded within the university.
Well, that's quite something that you're doing, seeing as you're the first generation of your family to go to university, right? And
yes.
Then actually become the president. It's
yes.
Amazing. How is the National Academy playing a role at Miami, Ohio, Greg?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting from our faculty's perspective because we're relatively new members, and it really offers resources, workshops, this conference, for example, to our faculty members, and they really get engaged with this great peer group. And it's not just your discipline-specific peer group of what you're studying or what you're doing, but now you're in the peer group with all inventors. And so I think it broadens their mind in that way. And the resources from NAI are just extraordinary, and from the little workshops to the intellectual property modules and so forth. And so we're really heavily utilizing that. And then, Miami's known for being very entrepreneurial. It's focused on undergraduates, and we have a lot of students that take entrepreneurship. And really the NIA really keeps that spirit of entrepreneurship alive and offers those resources. So we're delighted to be a member here, and it's just been a fantastic ride for us so far, and we're looking forward to the future.
So you've been 6 years at Miami, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Teik, what do you think it's going to do for NJIT?
Well, let me speak broadly first. I like the fact that we have a National Academy of Inventor. And the reason why I say that, okay, it put a spotlight on innovation, invention, and then obviously intellectual property and entrepreneurship. And the partnership between NAI and academic institution is just fabulous. Because when I started my faculty career, I felt that, we do teaching, we do research, but innovation sort of happen by chance. The fact that NAI put a spotlight on innovation, people think about it, faculty do, and it permeates into students' mindset as well, that this is critical. This is something that we need, especially our nation, because I think higher ed is the economic engine and the innovation engine of this country. At UT Arlington, when I first became the interim president in 2020, we established the Center for Entrepreneurship and Economic Innovation. And we also restarted the NAI chapter at UT Arlington. And we did those two things because we wanted to put a spotlight on innovation being very, very important. I'm, as you mentioned, going to New Jersey Institute of Technology. What attract me to NJIT, okay, is that place is really innovative and entrepreneurial. And as I shared with you, a few weeks ago, NJIT sold a company for $70 million. And that was something that they innovated. They created a company and then sold the company and add to economic prosperity of the state of New Jersey.
Income for the university. Presidents are always very interested in that. Thank you, Teik. And I might add, your commitment was very strong there because your successor, Jennifer Conley, was here yesterday introducing the senior members.
I think she's still here.
Yeah, so the presidents are here. That should tell us quite a bit.
We call it a continuity. Continuity.
Continuity.
Yeah.
We'll take it. All right, well, my second question that I'd like to ask really reflects on a series of pursuits that the Academy has been asking itself over the full arc of its existence. And I was here at, I think, what was the first meeting, or maybe the second meeting at USF. And it was a lot about incentive systems and how the activities of the Academy were going to affect the incentive systems of the university today. And what I'm more curious about is in the future. So I'm going to ask Greg, what might third-party recognition systems such as being an NIA fellow or a senior member, what might that have to do with the current or future faculty and or staff incentive systems at Miami of Ohio?
Well, that's a big question.
Well, you're a big guy.
It's a great question too, but I think that when you kind of look at, there's many incentives across, whether it's tenure or promotion, the financial incentives that are both personal for the faculty member and also for the institution as a whole. And there's also reputation around it. So there's many things. And my career in higher ed has been about 25 years now. And I started off at Brown for many years, then the University of Notre Dame, and now Miami in my 7th year. And it was interesting that when you look at sort of the evolution of patenting and inventions, it's changed quite a bit. It started off as, kind of like, let's count it as service and maybe we'll just do it that way. And then as it kind of gained momentum, it was kind of an add-on. Well, it's not exactly like a paper, but that patent may help with it, a little bit extra cream on top for your promotion package. And then today, it's really a part of actually most universities and many universities on sort of what they do and how they evaluate tenure and tenure track faculty for promotions and also for a great incentive structure. And so it's changed over time. And now that we count them and look at patents, that's great. And then the second level is, do they create value? Do you start a company? Do you technology transfer it? And that's even better. And the third thing is, are you an NAI fellow? That's even more fantastic. And so you have all these different layers today. And so I think, it certainly plays a big role in what we do and how we look at, invention discovery, in addition to scholarship and publication, sort of in the tenure process. And also if you want to receive that endowed chair in the future as well, it plays a big role, financially on your sort of merit increases as well. So we look at that every year annually. And then certainly what we do is that, on the personal side, we really created really big incentive packages for faculty members in the sharing of those revenues that come back to the university. It's not just the royalty payments, but it's also stock and so forth that actually moves in. So big kind of sharing packages. And it's been interesting to look and kind of, benchmark universities and their incentive packages for faculty, because they're kind of all over the place. There's a third, a third, and a third, 50 graduating scales and all these different things. But it could be very lucrative if you come up with a great invention, both for the university and for the individual in and of itself. So it's kind of been an interesting ride to see it over the years, kind of evolve into where it's at today. But it's really a big deal now. And I think, for our faculty members and so forth, and faculty members at other universities that become an NAI fellow, I think, one, it's a fantastic reputational bump. For one, it's, comparable, and people look upon it as the other academies and other fellowships of professional organization. It offers them a great peer group to be invested in, to invest their time in, and so forth. And it actually, and maybe in some cases in a bad way, you have to start, if you're going to be recruiting your new faculty member that's an NAI fellow, so you have to hold on to them and so forth. So those are a few of my perspectives over the years, and looking forward to the future. I think the incentive structure will change even more.
That's what I'm interested in, Greg. Where do you think that's going to go? The new incentive structures?
I think it's going to really swing more towards the faculty side. I know you're putting me on the spot, thank you. But but I really think it's going to swing even more than the 33 or the 50% in the future for some of these packages and so forth. Because you do a paper, maybe it's basic research, and then you really put your heart and soul into getting this patent done. And it's an interesting experience, because it's not just now what my idea is, but you're trying to protect it. And so you're doing all this extra work and all this actual intellectual input for the university to move it forward. And so I do think it'll be much more incentivized in the future.
Great. How might that change at NJIT Tech?
Higher ed has always been a composition of individual entrepreneur. Right? It's messy, but at the same time, it creates a bubble of innovation. And so, higher ed also, in addition to being an engine of social mobility, we produce students that are impactful in their professional career. Higher ed, I think the pandemic kind of accentuated. Higher ed is also an engine of economic prosperity. And when I was still in Texas, speak to our legislator, I remind them that that's what higher ed is all about. We would help you lead in the economic recovery. So given that, I think as Greg had mentioned about tenure and promotion, faculty live and die by the promotion and tenure and retention document. So we have to go back to that level, and work with the faculty hand in glove, and perhaps enhance that mission, that faculty is not simply doing research, teaching, and service, but also invention, entrepreneurship, collaboration. As you know, I'm going to New Jersey, and I reminded the faculty there and the deans and the department chair, this next hiring, I want to see them hire talents, but not only talent, but talented team player. This team players is important, because if you're a team player, then you can really be able to create partnership and synergy with industry and the community.
Yeah. Well, what are your plans for that at Central Florida, Alex?
I think what you're seeing in society is a shift towards expectation for impact of universities on society, and that we need to be able to document and talk about how we're having an impact. There's lots of ways to do that. There are publications, there's a service, but there's also what we do in inventions and innovation. And in fact, there are products that can be produced that have incredible impact on society, saving lives. There are direct implications, and I think we have to be able to articulate that better in our documents that are for tenure and promotion, and to talk more about what is the impact someone's having. We have a lot of impact through education. We have a lot of impact on people's lives in so many different ways. How do we tell that story? And from a university perspective, one of the real advantages for a lot of what's happening in certainly in innovation, and if you get to a startup company and all of those, it gives us a much better way to tell our story to the public. And if we're going to use that as a way to tell our story to the public, to the legislators, to explain why public dollars coming to a university like UCF is so beneficial to society, then we should also recognize it internally, that it is beneficial to the university and the society. And that means we're going to have to think about how we go through our tenure and promotion processes. And we do, we take it into account. I just think we're going to continue to have to emphasize that it is an important part of what we do.
I really like that answer, but I'm curious as if tenure and promotion is really a path to the future or some more innovative model of faculty incentive.
I will say this.
You come from the biggest university, so I'm asking you.
Well, and also we're a metropolitan university.
And distinguish it, because we had a conversation.
So, we're right in the middle of Orlando. People don't realize the University of Central Florida is right in Orlando, but we're the 22nd largest metropolitan area. We're the 4th fastest growing area in the country. And that puts us in a really unique position. We were founded to support the Space Coast. And so 29% of Kennedy Space Center are graduates from our university. Pretty big impact. And there's a lot of large companies nearby. So what we have to be thinking about is not just the tenure and promotion of the future, but also what does the academy of the future look like and where are people employed? Because with that much industry nearby, there's incredible opportunity for us to work collaboratively with them. And I talk a lot about the fact that our university is boundless and we don't really have borders, and that what you're going to see is universities where you won't know where the university starts versus where industry starts. There'll be much more of a merger. And that's going to change how we hire. That's going to change what those positions look like. And that will change tenure and promotion.
Interestingly, there's a book out called The Third Generation University, which talks about this blending.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So my last question, before we perhaps take some questions from the audience, is about curriculum. And should a course on innovation and intellectual property related matters be part of the undergraduate or graduate school curriculum as a mandatory or elective course at your institution, Teik?
Absolutely. That's a short answer. But let me expand on that. You really cannot talk about intellectual property unless you talk about innovation, invention, obviously creation of intellectual property, and then entrepreneurship. I think this whole life cycle, okay, it's really ubiquitous. It's like mathematics. It crosses across all programs. At UT Arlington, last year, we started a module in innovation and entrepreneurship at the freshman level, which means every freshman student coming in to UT Arlington will have a dose of innovation and entrepreneurship, the concept of it. When a long time ago, many moons ago, when I served as the Dean of Engineering in Cincinnati, early in my deanship, I would ask students, okay, why do you want to be an engineer? And many of them say, I want to work for a Ford Motor Company, I want to work for GE, P&G, I want to build the next best engine, next nifty cars. Then as my deanship evolved to the later part of it, I asked the same question, and half of the students tells me they want to be entrepreneur. They want to be entrepreneur. And then I hear from corporations, okay, even the large corporations who hire our engineers, they want engineers who are entrepreneurial minded because they see a value in that. So that's really good. That's why it needs to be a part of the curriculum. The other reason, okay, and Alexander and I had some discussion on that yesterday, is that if you do something that fits into something that the university cares about, and what do we care about? Student success, graduation rate. I believe students who learn about entrepreneurship, about creation of intellectual property, try to innovate, they tend to graduate. They tend to not drop out from school, okay? So this experiment that we're doing at UT Arlington, where we're introducing a module of entrepreneurship, part of that, okay, is done within the student division of student success. And the reason for doing that, okay, is because we regard that as a high impact activity that would then lead to higher graduation rate. We'll tell in a few years whether that's true or not, the hypothesis.
Well, that sounds great, Teik. But that's a required course for everyone.
That's a required course for every freshman.
Do you think you can do the same thing at NGIT?
I'm hinting to the faculty, yes.
Okay, Greg, what are your plans?
Yeah,
Miami?
so I was interesting because in my professor career, I started teaching IP, intellectual property law, but from the perspective of an engineer and a physicist on how you work with patent attorneys and patent agents to actually move your sort of idea beyond the stage of a journal article. And then I'd have the patent attorney come in and do the kind of tactical piece of it. And I think it was really important, and I did it across various institutions that I was at. It was very important for those undergraduates to get it. And then for the graduate students, they kind of just needed a dose of how do you recognize when you have an invention based on some basic fundamental discovery that you might have. And so we kind of did those kind of exercises with them. And I've kind of evolved my thinking on this because just a few years ago, we were looking to, we had an agreement with Wright-Patterson Air Force Base where we got 1,000 of their patents, and then our students could search through those patents and kind of figure out if there was a sort of a commercial application for something that was invented for a military purpose. And I saw them wrestling with this, and we had patent agents and attorneys working with them, and it was just an extraordinary experience. I think that practical aspect of this IP of somebody else's invention and what can I do on top of it or move it forward to something else and something new, I think was a real sort of dose of what really intellectual property law and patent law is all about. And so I've kind of sort of emerged to be more practical with this and seeing it that way. It really cut across our kind of engineering curriculum and a lot of our business school curriculum. But the neat thing about it as well is that, our business plan competition all of a sudden had these patents showing up. And, many business plan competitions, we're all involved with those. And there's some patenting, there's some ideas, there's some that could be patented. But now we had a lot more of like patents involved in this competition, which was really interesting. So I think that practical nature of it really showed them how to engage the process in a deeper way than my original career when I started.
Now, you didn't use the word intellectual property to introduce the course, right? You called
Yes.
You did?
Yes.
Oh, very brave, very brave. Now, is that elective or is it?
It was elective. Yeah, it was
Elective.
it was elective.
Okay. What have you done at UCF, Alex?
So we do a lot of the same things, and Teik and I have talked about this, is that we have it at the graduate level, we have it at the undergraduate level. It isn't required across the whole curriculum. To me, it's about student success, and when you think about how do you really encourage student success, there's lots of high impact practices. This whole concept of innovation and entrepreneurship is another one of those sort of high impact practices that can have an impact on the student's ability to be successful within the university. So we want to encourage that along with a bunch of other things that they can really think about. The one thing I would add that's a little different because they did a great job of talking about this topic. In talking to our industry partners, what is coming across loud and clear is that it isn't just about innovation and inventions, but it's also the creativity. And I distinguish that in that we've actually had industry panels at our board meetings, and what they talk about is the real desire to engage those individuals from the arts and humanities, the real ability to have the creative people know enough about the technology and other areas that they're also able to then contribute to that. So I think that's the other part to this, is how do we really embed creativity across the curriculum in addition to tying that to innovation and entrepreneurship.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because yesterday, Gary Michelson was up here, and he mentioned 6 traits: intellect, knowledge, imagination, permission.
Yeah.
It's a big one, right?
Yeah.
Courage and daring and perseverance. While these seem like fundamental things, they seem to be part and parcel of the invention process.
Yeah, they are. I agree.
So I'm wondering how we even get that deep into the curriculum and make that part of what is an elective or a required course. At Northwestern, we've succeeded in making this required course for certain elements of what are our MBA students.
Yeah.
And it's elective for other audiences, but many of my students at Florida State University, for example, are doing the same thing, taking these kinds of courses forward. Okay, we have time for questions. And you're welcome to come and queue up at any of the mics here if you have an inquiry for the presidents. Now we got them on stage and they can't escape. So use your opportunities.
This is a very rarefied atmosphere for us inventors,
Yourself, could you introduce yourself?
Sorry, Rock Mackey, Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
So
luck.
Wisconsin has a motto. It's called the Wisconsin Idea. And what the Wisconsin Idea means is that the influence of the university should extend to the borders of the state. And it's been so hard to try to get the university to realize that also includes invention, entrepreneurship. And really what has to happen at such a university, even Wisconsin, which has a famed history of, tech transfer through WRF, is to really understand that principle and say that, the Wisconsin Idea 2.0 is the university is an entrepreneurial university. And until you really have administration backing into that, for example, not just tenure, but faculty hires should be coming from industry, especially in fields that are extremely applied, right? In medical physics, one of the premier physicists at Stanford is a guy named Norbert Pelk, who worked for GE Medical for many years before he came back to academia. And he just has millions of dollars in grants. That's the attitude that you really have to have at a university, to see the value in people that have experience outside of the academy. Instead of hiring postdocs, who've been through the cycle, hire people who come from industry and can teach what they know to their students and postdocs.
So thank you for this comment, this model, Wisconsin 2.0, right? Do you have the model?
Wisconsin Idea 2.0.
Wisconsin Idea 2.0. Do you have a view for something like this?
Well, I'm actually a product of what he just mentioned. I spent a number of years in industry, and the years that I spent in industry, even though it was the earlier part of my life, it really molded, my conduct as a faculty member. I've always felt like industry partnership is a must for every faculty member, in addition to NSF, NIH, and all the other funding agencies.
Yeah, me too. I started off at Xerox PARC and had a great career there for a few years. And then I got to academia, and then I felt really good where I was at and sort of learning things and that practical aspect of things. And then as time went on, I felt like I needed a little bit of a pump again. So I did my sabbatical at Philips in the Netherlands. And I think that was very helpful. And so we are hiring, especially in some of the fields today where we have our new investments in robotics and in data science and analytics and some of the areas in health, people that have really worked out there in industry for years and are bringing them in on tenure and tenure track lines as well. And I think that's been a positive. And I've been thinking about, even doing these, since I benefited so much from my sabbatical years ago at an industry, to actually think about more industry sabbaticals for our faculty, to get them out there for half a year to get them sort of immersed in what's going on out there. And there's nothing like being at a place where the pressures and tensions of, generating revenue from your ideas are front and center. So it's just a wonderful experience and very different than academics, but bringing that back in really can be a big plus.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned some of this earlier. We talk about a university without borders, and that does imply, of course, that we're thinking about how do we leverage the strengths that are in industry to really allow us to do the things we want to do.
Great. We have another question. This side of the room, please. I can't see because of these lights.
Can't see.
Gregory from University of Texas at Arlington. Hi. In engineering, I'm going to narrow to engineering because that's my area. Capstone projects, capstone courses are really important. That's where sometimes students finally say, oh, really? Now I'm an engineer. I'm not taking physics and math, basic science course. I can really apply. And so why can't we expand those opportunities? And a lot of patents and creativity have come up out of the capstone courses. Why can't we expand that into engineering science courses, for example, thermodynamics and so on and so forth, by having special projects and where the literature search is not just publications, but also patents, and potentially also asking them to try to be creative. How can I come up with a better contemporary topic like alternative energy? How I come up with a better idea? I say this because I've been teaching thermodynamics for a while. I've been putting special projects 25% for the last 10 years, and the students really get excited about it. Thank you.
So how do we make the thermodynamics course more like a fun?
Not just thermo, but any engineering science course.
I mean, I think what you need are people like you who are willing to take those chances and actually teach a class where you actually challenge the students to think also about patents and inventions. I think that actually will, as long as you do it also in a way that you're actually publishing and talking about what you're doing, because the more you can get it out there, the more people will accept it. Initially, you're always a little nervous about trying new things. All of us are. at some level. We might be really innovative in some areas, but then we're pretty traditional in other things that we do. So it's how do you actually let other people know that this is a mechanism they might be able to use to more effectively teach and actually engage students better. And I think that's what it's going to be about.
Okay. We got another question. We got a bunch of questions, so I'm going to get to it.
Yes, Sam Mohapatra from the University of South Florida. I have no questions, but a comment. I'd like to pick up what the UCF president said, that we like to have university without borders for teaching innovation. And that's a key concept that we are trying to develop at the USF. And I talked about what I call pharma academic industry network. And that network actually works all over the place. It actually brings together people from academia, excellent people from academia, students, and industry people together in one platform that they can exchange views, they can learn actually in a practical experiences, they can learn as well. So it involves internship, fellowships, things like that in industry from the university, and industry people to come to the university. It's something that can be also, we call it a pin network. And this is what we got to think transformational, not incremental advance in going forward with innovation. And that's what I call really the way we need to really with the speeding way we should go at that, rather than just going slow, one step at a time. Almost all universities are having courses now in their curriculum to teach innovation, entrepreneurship, leadership. I don't think this is lacking. What is lacking is to really give the students the experience they need and be innovative in both atmospheres, academic as well as industry together.
That's a great question. Any
Thank you.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, it's from the standpoint of these sort of integration, I think, the capstone projects are great, and you can walk around some of these sort of fairs with the capstone and students presenting, and you can see inventions just about everywhere. Yeah. But I do think that, the aspect of it was that, in the past, invention and discovery, there was a lot about graduate students and faculty and postdocs, and now it's so kind of embedded, and you can do so much as an undergraduate, and our undergraduates are inventing things in dorms and starting companies and so forth. And so I do think that kind of seamless integration that you can pull in with industry is a great thing. And there's just elements that we do across the board now at Miami. One is with our Farmer Business School, that every single student gets a first year integrated core. And so they kind of dropped off all the courses and they get an industry sponsored project, which the teams work on. And there's modules around entrepreneurship and creativity and finance and accountancy and so forth that they kind of do and they present at the end. And I think that gives them a kind of a big dose of what it takes to actually work in the business world. And then they actually treat their sort of more theoretical courses later on in their career at the university a little bit differently because they've had that practical experiences. And I do think these sort of consortiums of universities with industries are fantastic, and you're seeing them growing in different ways. And our biggest one of all things, it doesn't sound as high tech, but it's paper science. It's very high tech. But we have now over 100 companies that actually participate with our students on projects and so forth. And I just love some of the stuff that they do, because there's a lot of not just inventing and doing new things that the students get exposed to, but they also get projects where they have to reverse engineer things. Here's a box to reverse engineer it. So there's a lot of kind of neat things in the integration that the various universities are doing.
This sounds like a good topic to keep talking about over lunch and the gala dinner tonight. We got another question right over here.
Sure. Paul Soul, Florida High Tech Corridor. And the question I would like you to think about for a second, and I'll put it in context of University of Florida, is structurally from your organizations, and very much like the Navy, we're all kind of tribe-like. So as you think about big universities and colleges as they're working, I'm interested in what things you're doing in your organizations to foster boundary-breaking collaboration between groups. The UF example I'll give you is what Dr. Fox, President Fox did with AI, when Florida got a huge grant for AI, and he knew that if we keep AI only in engineering and science, we will not graduate enough students who are conversant in AI to help this country. And he spread it across all of his colleges. What I got to see was an amazing sort of engagement and excitement, especially in the non-traditional, in the arts and things like that for AI. So I'm interested in each of your thoughts on your own sort of vision or what you're doing kind of across internal organizations in your universities. Thank you.
Why don't you take that?
Sure, yes. If you think about the most valuable asset of an institution, are faculty, bottom line, right? I know sometimes it's messy to deal with them, but they're faculty, they're great. So I think it starts right there. We have to hire, I say before, talented team player who think interdisciplinary, who think multidisciplinary, who work cut across different disciplines. I recall, this is many years ago, when I was Dean of Engineering, I hired a faculty member who had affiliation with 3 departments, 50% in chemical engineering, I think 25% in biology and 25% in chemistry. One day he came to me, he says, this is great. I said, how is it working? He says, great, because this is an experiment that we're trying. He said, it's great because no one knows where I am. He's got 3 offices. But my point, okay, is that if you hire a faculty member like that, they will work with students across different disciplines. And then you have this whole idea of being one university and you're breaking off silos. I think that's critical.
Yeah, he wanted to hear from each of you.
Oh, well, I think it's, we're working on sort of boundaryless aspects of the university. And so our new academic buildings now, they have to transcend colleges. And so we have multiple colleges now in one building. And so we're thinking about our infrastructure in that way. And then I'll never forget, we're trying to hire, just like you are, in terms of people that think sort of just beyond their own boundaries. And it was in a TMP, a promotion committee one time, and we were asking the question years ago about, how much did this person, it was a biostatistics paper, but was it 25% of a contribution? Was it 75? What contribution did they make on this paper? And then the letter writer wrote back and said, the reviewer, and said, that's kind of a silly question. They all did 100%. And so we're thinking about, how do we actually get this going? Because the solutions that we're trying to sort of, both intentionally and serendipitously get out of faculty groups and teams, they have to come from people that are going to put all 100% in from their disciplines to get to where we want to be.
The only thing I'd add to what they've said is, what we've done is intentionally, and again, in our strategic plan, which we just completed, is intentionally put very broad areas that we're going to emphasize. And we've made it very clear that those are the areas that we're going to grow and grow significantly to build the strength that we want in that particular area. None of those areas are specific to one discipline. They all require multiple disciplines. And in fact, what we want is we'll only invest in those areas and invest in the hires that really drive that interdisciplinary research. So yes, you still need the basic core things that are going to happen at the discipline level, but as a university, it's our job and the provost to think about how we build that community across the whole university that can tackle grand challenges. And it gets back to what I said much earlier. As long as we remain focused on our impact on society, you have the biggest impact if you bring together different people with different skill sets, different backgrounds to tackle those grand challenges. And that's what it's going to take to solve.
Okay, we have just 30 seconds left for one quick question.
Yeah, David Jaffe, University of Texas, MD Anderson Cancer Center. Question about outreach. The U.S. Patent and Trade Office and the patent structure allows anybody to create something that they own ultimately and to be managed. What are you doing to reach out to kids before they get to the university to stimulate and let them realize that's an opportunity? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
So what are you guys doing in K through 12?
That's a big topic, and I believe we actually do have a lot of efforts where we're working with particular neighborhoods. We're thinking about how do we attract people into different disciplines. There's a lot of emphasis there in terms of how do you bring in people who may not realize that they could actually have an impact on innovation and STEM and other areas. It's through our faculty, it's through staff, it's through a lot of different things. It's partnerships with the county, it's partnerships across regions with the high schools, with different schools. There's a lot of activity. I would say that probably if what you're looking for is are there coordinated, focused efforts that are really just based on innovation and inventions, we don't have those. They're in other things that are going on.
Okay, thank you again.
Hey, James, can I say something?
Sure.
At UT Arlington, actually, we have a program that exactly what he just said, called Big Ideas. We bring in K to 12 students to campus.
That's a really good one.
To campus, to do pitching, and they win scholarship, they win prizes. This is thousands of students are involved in this. It's a
And
partnership
we do have some like that.
Yes.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, that's a very good point. Yes.
Thank you for the question. You
Yes.
reminded the presidents.
Yes.
Okay, that's unfortunately all the time that we have here today. So I just want to conclude by thanking our speakers and reminding all of you that they are here after having experienced what all of you have done as members of this academy. They're all fellow members. So as you listen to them, internalize what they're saying, because this may be where you end up in the future. It's conspicuous because I think it's important that all of the words of innovation that are making their ways into their strategic plans and all of the rest are inherent in the way that this academy thinks. And I hope that has an impact on the future through all of your participation in the leadership of our universities. So thank you again, Greg.
Thank you.